Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Hello and welcome to the Think Factory podcast. My name is Susan Kleiner. I'm a partner with OGC Solutions, and I'm really excited today to be joined by two remarkable leaders from GoMo Health, Annette and Coralee Schmitz. At GoMo Health, they're transforming the way behavioral health and recovery are delivered. From pioneering digital therapeutics to empowering peer support networks, their work is helping individuals and communities heal, grow, and thrive. Annette is a behavioral health advocate and former director of peer support services for the largest mental health and treatment facility in Montana. At GoMo Health, Annette brings lived experience and professional expertise to her work in substance use recovery. She has played a pivotal role in the development and implementation of Recovery Pathways, a digital therapeutic program which uses personalized mobile messaging to support individuals in recovery. Annette's leadership and storytelling have inspired countless others on their own recovery journeys, and she continues to be a voice for trauma-informed, person-centered care. We're also very fortunate to have with us Coralee Schmitz, a senior leader at GoMo Health, a behavioral-based science digital health company that is designing and delivering evidence-based engagement programs. Coralee is the former COO of the largest mental health and treatment facility provider in Montana, and she brings with her a keen understanding of the administrative side with a personal understanding of how addiction affects family members. Together, Annette and Coralee are a powerhouse at GoMo Health. With a background in healthcare innovation and program development, the two have been working tirelessly to bridge the gap between clinical care and everyday life, using behavioral science to drive better outcomes and more human-centered experiences. So with that introduction, I am so happy to have the two of you here with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I'm really curious to hear from both of you about your personal journey into behavioral health and what led you to GoMo Health. Annette, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, so in 2014, I was sentenced to a treatment court program through the 13th Judicial Court in Montana. At that point in my life, I had racked up several felony charges. I mean, my life consisted of a few months on the streets, a few months in jail, a few months on the streets, a few months in jail, really just not much to hope or live for. And so I began a journey in treatment court, and I had been placed in a high intense treatment program that had me in treatment 5 days a week for, starting out like 7 hours a day and then reduced to like 4 hours a day. And I was in that program for more than 730 days, I think was the total number. So I got really, really invested in treatment. And at the end of that program and at my graduation day, everything that I had lost in addiction had been restored to me, plus, tenfold more. I mean, more things that I had never even thought that I would have wanted had been restored. And so, in early recovery, we get what I like to call early recovery jobs. And so it's like washing dishes, working at, in hospitality, different things like that. We just take the job that we can get. But I knew at my graduation that I would go back to work for the treatment center that had helped save my life. And that was my dream, and I was dedicated to it. And so about a year after graduation, it was time to pay the piper. I knew it was time to give back. I had a heart for giving and helping. And so I applied and took an entry-level position at that treatment center, and sort of people say they climbed the corporate ladder. I climbed the behavioral health ladder. And really all that really took was just to show up and love the people that were coming through the door. And peer support was kind of a new thing to Montana. I remember I was voluntold to go and I was too new to argue with them, but I read it and thought, oh no, that's a paid sponsor, and I'm not about that. I don't agree with that. But I went to the training anyways and found out it was nothing what I had thought it, contempt prior to investigation. And it turned out to be this program that we got to build and expand there that I believe saved the lives of countless individuals that walk through our door. So and then it was COVID and most people were working from home, and I'm like a get up, get dressed, get ready, show up kind of gal. I couldn't, my mental health really didn't do well with working from home. So I opted to come into the office. And interestingly enough, I had listened to a speaker. I was at a speaker meeting, and this woman talked about saying yes to the universe. And so I really adopted that that little saying and tried to apply it to my life. And so when GoMo Health got brought up, I was like, oh man, like recovery's done face to face. It's, person to person. And I couldn't imagine how, we would help people through, a digital platform or through messaging. And everything that I had learned about recovery felt to seem to go against that. But here we are in the midst of COVID, and we can't reach people. Like we physically can't reach people. And so one more time, despite my contempt prior to investigation, I said yes to the universe when I was invited to sit in on these calls. And what I thought was going to be sort of a flimsy thing for people in recovery turned out to be this, powerful tool that we got to engage people with and help them, stay sober, help them in the midst of relapse and so many different scenarios where we got to really impact and save lives of individuals that were suffering. So.
Wow, what an inspiring story. Like 11 years ago, your life was so different. And it's such an honor and pleasure to have you here today. Coralie, I want you to answer the same thing too, but in case our listeners aren't familiar with GoMo Health, can you just explain to me what this digital platform is that Annette was just talking about, and how GoMo Health is using innovation and the digital platform to help people?
GoMo Health is like you said, a platform that is not an app. And I think that's a key component to the whole program, is that it's so that it reaches clients very easily. There's no sign in. A fancy way of saying the people at GoMo understand what motivates change and what motivates resiliency in the human nature. And so it's being able to put that right in front of somebody at the time that they need it. And so those messages are choreographed by humans for humans. It's not a bot. It's not AI. We write all of the messages. They come at specific times of the day that are designed to impact the person, depends on the program. And so all of our programs are customized. The Recovery Pathways program is for people entering into early recovery, either in treatment or outside of treatment, and follows them through the stages of recovery and mental health. And so that was the program that we brought into this treatment center that was so impactful for the clients.
That's amazing. So GoMo Health, I mean, you said it's very customizable. I mean, you work with your clients specific to their programs and their population, and, craft something new to help them individually, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so now that we've explained that and how cool that is, I'm really also curious about how was it that you got to GoMo Health, and what's led you in your personal journey into behavioral health, Coralie?
Well, my story started in 1997. I was in college and my sister needed treatment, and our family knew nothing about how to navigate the world of treatment. How do you even get treatment? Who do you call? What is residential versus outpatient? Does everybody need residential? So my family had to figure that out. And we did. We found a treatment center and we admitted her. And part of that treatment center's services was a family week. And so my family and I participated in programming with her. And it was the most powerful experience of our lives. It changed our lives, is what it did. And so we went through this with her, and I knew in that moment that I was going to be in addiction treatment. And at that point, I hadn't decided what my life was going to be yet. And so that's where it started. As soon as I got out of college, I applied for a job, and I was hired into an entry-level position and worked my way through the hoops and just kept growing and learning, and was identified as a promotable, as somebody that they wanted to invest in. And so the leadership at the organization invested in me and in my future and gave me a ton of opportunities. So I ended up taking over as the chief operating officer in 2012. And through that program was given a lot of opportunities. And then, as Annette said, COVID came in 2020. And at that point, we were tiptoeing into this digital therapeutic idea. And then when COVID hit, it was like, okay, we are both feet in. How do we get this off the ground? And so that's where it started. That's how we integrated that program into our services. We went live in 2021. And then both Annette and I left that organization. We fell in love with GoMo and the mission of what it does and the number of people that it can impact. The broad nationwide impact of GoMo is quite impressive. So we both left the organization in 2024 and signed on, pretty sure I have that year right, and signed on with GoMo shortly thereafter and brought our expertise in. And now we're able to impact a lot more lives and bring this program to other places.
So I think that there's kind of a theme here, and what I'm hearing from both you and Annette, which is saying yes to the universe, right? And learning so much from our own personal experience. Obviously difficult for both of you, your journey in recovery, but saying yes and making the most out of a difficult situation, which I suppose is also part of, you could see that too with the creation of the Recovery Pathways program really grew out of a difficult situation. I'm thinking through COVID, like really helped inspire the growth of that. Would you say that that's true?
Yes, because the plan that we had for Recovery Pathways, we were just getting into it. And then as soon as COVID hit, it took a whole nother turn. For one example of that is we were not running hybrid or telehealth groups. Telehealth groups, if you're familiar with the addiction field, is very difficult to do because it's hard to keep people engaged in group. You can't see the body language. There's just a dynamic that's hard to pick up when you run a group. Well, when COVID hit, we didn't have a choice. All of our outpatient groups went online. And so one of the things that's difficult is task work. So you send out, we typically, if it's an in-person group, people get task work, they complete it outside of group, they bring it back to group and they share it. And everybody in group is engaged because they're all basically able to be seen. When you're on a camera and on the computer screen, it was more difficult to keep everyone engaged. So if you have a group of 9 people and you've got one person presenting their task work and their story, you've got 8 other people that are zoned out, probably texting, doing whatever they can to pass the time. And so one thing that we integrated into GoMo, knowing that, was we put all of the task work into GoMo's companion. And so remember I said there were 3 parts to GoMo. The first was the text messages. The second is the companion. And so the companion feature is a platform online that you can put anything you want into. And one thing that we put in there was our task work. And so the clients could do that, click on it, fill it out, and then when they were sharing their information, they could share the task work online, which instantly engaged the rest of the group, because now it wasn't just one person talking and reading what they wrote. It was up on the screen and everybody had input. That was just one tidbit that we did to help incorporate or that changed with the implementation during COVID.
That's really amazing. So I know you talked about this a little bit before, but if you want to touch on it any more, I'm curious, how, the other ways that GoMo Health integrates behavioral science into its digital therapeutic solutions.
I think the main thing, like I said, was understanding what drives human behavior and what drives change. And it's information in small doses at the right time. You can't send somebody an article or a link and say, click on this and read this article. People aren't going to do it. But you send a small snippet of something and they're going to take it in, they'll read it. It's figures out how to engage somebody in a brief amount of time.
That's interesting. You hear so much about like what our attention span is, and it sounds like, you're not trying to change people's attention span. You're trying to work with people in these small bites. So Annette, I'm really curious, given, your amazing story, how has your lived experience shaped your approach to peer support and program development?
Well, I think that, well, in a lot of different ways. And so I feel like, as a person with lived experience and a person in recovery, I always call it like the language of the heart, but I can, get on the level with a person who's, suffering from addiction or, or maybe early in recovery. And I can speak a language that only we would know, only a person who had lived it would know what they're going through and be able to articulate it in a sense that builds their trust almost instantly. And so that's been very beneficial. And then, thinking when I got into the behavioral health field, when I began working in treatment centers and began developing, different programs and things, I always thought about what worked for me, what didn't work for me. But knowing that there are so many different pathways to recovery. And so that launched me into researching all of the different pathways, all of the different ways a person can be successful. And it really broadened my knowledge of, how does a person recover? And I always think about, I would see things, I would learn about things, I would watch different approaches, and I would think to myself, gosh, I wish I would have had that. Holy smokes, that would have been amazing when I was going through X, Y, or Z. And so just always looking for any gaps in care that I possibly had that I thought would be able to help the next person and make it even, it's not an easy process. None of it's easy. But if there's something that can lessen the stress and the pain of early recovery, then I'm certainly want to implement it or help, deliver it to whoever we're facing.
Wow. So for sure, you have the ability to see how your experience can help others, right? Which is so important. I'm curious, it just sounds amazing, and I know that you've been able to reach a lot of people through the GoMo Health program. Is there any particular success story that you could think of that really illustrates the impact of GoMo and the Recovery Pathways program?
Gosh, there's so I guess I can just give you a handful, or we could just take up the rest of the meeting while I tell you all about these individual stories that make me really happy. One of my favorite stories is we had an individual who came through our doors quite a bit at the treatment center. And so all of our staff really knew this person, knew them well. And every time they came through the door, we invested all that we had to try to help them maintain long-term recovery. The way that our program was set up is we had, when a person requested peer support, it went out to all of our peers during business hours. And then after hours, it went to our on-call peer support. And so we had an individual, that same individual, text talk at about 6:00 at night. And so the peer that's on call sees who it is and is thinking, oh man, they've relapsed again. And so as they're calling them back, the individual is not relapsed and is in a really bad way and wants to, and is outside of a a convenience store wanting to go in and buy some alcohol, and said, I can go in here, or I can go to a meeting, but I don't think I can get out of my car. And the peer was able to go meet him at the gas station and take him to a meeting and get him home. And it was just like that. That was the first time for that one client that they, rather than just impulsively going in and getting something to drink, they reached out to the peer program. And I thought, had we have not, I don't think that he would have picked up the 10,000-pound phone and made a phone call. But the ability to be able to just send a text message and, say, SOS, well, type peer, and to have somebody call him back right away, I think, and that person's still sober today. So that was just the first time that they had done something different other than walking in and getting a drink. And then the other side of that is, we would, through the Recovery Pathways program, we send, how are you doing surveys and quality of life surveys. And so as the director of the peer program, I looked at all of that data. And so it really began to showcase where individuals' lives were improving. And so you would see them rating 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then and then all of a sudden they're rating, a 3 on spirituality and a 5 on, they got a job, and so their vocational thing is 5 because they've gotten a job. And when you're interacting with so many clients, it's really hard to keep track of the success stories and where people are at individually. And that data really showed, it really told a beautiful story of somebody's life getting better, and them self-reporting, not just, well, the counselor note says this, or, the notes say this, but it's them telling us, yes, my life is getting better. Yes, family's getting better. My kids came home today. Life's getting better. I'm sleeping better at night. I feel refreshed in the morning. He just gets to tell this beautiful story of recovery. And then lastly, I would say, oh my gosh, I forgot my last one.
That's
Maybe
okay.
It wasn't important. Sorry.
No, well, let me jump in, because it sounds like, having this data is really important for the program itself and shows how well the program's working. But I imagine that having this data, a person, how they're self-reporting over time, you can say to them, hey, look at how far you've come. If somebody says, I'm not feeling good today, okay, let's see where you started, because I think we all have these built-in forgetters, right? Mm-hmm. And so that sounds powerful on a large scale and on a small scale. And that's amazing. So I'm very grateful to hear that, GoMo Health and these personalized interactions occur. So Coralee, I'm thinking about the two of you and how you're able to collaborate together at GoMo Health, right? The peer support specialist and the, administrator, COO, collaborating and working together. So given how, I see the two of you interact, I'm curious, in general, what role does collaboration play in the success of GoMo Health's initiatives?
Well, there's Annette and I, and then there's everybody else at GoMo. So Annette and I, our brains think differently, and why we have found such a partnership in everything that we do together is because of that difference, in that we both bring two different sides of the coin to the table, and we both respect what the other person brings. And so that's how together we have been able to bridge this gap of a very person-centered program that also checks all the boxes that need to be checked in order to support the long-term funding of the program, to be able to get administrative backup for the program. So all of it, we were able to balance that scale really well. How GoMo collaborates, the fantastic thing about GoMo is the people that work there it's impressive that this many good people ended up at the same company. And it says a lot for the CEO, number one, and number two, for what the company is capable of and what they can do. There are so many different experts in a lot of different areas. We have medical professionals on our staff. We have Annette bringing the subject matter expert for all things recovery, substance use. She's, CIT, which is crisis intervention training for first responders trained. And then you've got people, we have a behavioral psychologist. We have people who are really good with the IT piece of it that can make sure that all of the data and all the connections work. The collaboration is what makes GoMo so successful. And it's all led by somebody who doesn't have an ego in the game. And all he cares about is reaching as many people as possible and helping people to change their behaviors and helping to motivate that change. And that's what's so impressive about this company.
That sounds amazing. So I'm curious, what are you excited about? What's happening at GoMo that has you really excited?
I think so I'm speaking for me and Coralie because we've been all things first responders since early spring. We're developing a program called the First Responders Resiliency Program, which is a lot similar to the Recovery Pathways program, but it is not substance use related. It is delivering the same idea to first responders. And we're really starting out with a couple of police departments, and I'm passionate about that, I think, and I'll let Coralie kind of speak to why she's passionate about it. Is like Coralie said, I'm a coordinator for CIT Montana, which is a crisis intervention team. And so we train officers in responding to individuals who are in mental health crisis. And through that work, I've gotten to know a lot of our law enforcement, our local law enforcement, and began to understand and realize the traumas that they face every day, and know that they're good people who do a good job. And society sometimes gives so many officers a bad rap. It's not always positive, online and in the news. But here are real people who do a really good job, and they're suffering. And they're suffering silently. And so I just felt like, in GoMo, when I first kind of came on with GoMo and they had talked about this program, I thought that if we could make even a dent in first responder suicide, in first responder divorce, in first responder alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder, if we could even make a dent, I feel like, my life would be fulfilled. We could just save, a dent. But I think that we're going to save a lot more than a dent. We're going to help a lot of people with this program. And I'll just kick it to Coralie because she's so passionate about this as well that she should share her whys.
There's such a stigma in the world of first responders in seeking help. And we have an advisory board that's kind of guiding this process. And we hear it over and over again that first responders are reluctant to ask for help from a coworker, and peers within a first responding agency are really up and coming at this point. I mean, they're seen as a need, and there's all of the police departments, fire departments that we talk to have a peer team, but the utilization of that peer team is what's struggling. Some of them do it pretty good, and some of them not at all. It's just a name. And so what GoMo does is it allows for a confidential support where nobody knows what that person is seeking help for, what they're looking into, what tracks they're getting. That's all private. And I think it will allow the first responder to have access to real-time support without having to reach out and face the perceived or not perceived stigma that is substance use and mental health in that world. And so it's been an amazing project to be a part of. Everybody we talk to in the first responder world has been pleased and welcoming and wanting to sign on to the program. And it's just been fun. It's been fun to be a part of a project like that.
Well, it sounds amazing. You must be really excited to continue. I guess you're working on it and rolling it out. So I'll certainly look forward to hearing about how GoMo Health and how that platform is instrumental in assisting that community and meeting first responders where they're at. Just, it sounds like it's going to be really great. So, we're just about at the end here. I am curious, with all of your lived experience, is there some advice that you would give to your younger self? And we'll go ahead and start with Coralee.
The advice that I give myself all the time is don't take things so seriously. Don't take life so seriously. I had to learn that the hard way. My sister, who got me into this world, passed away recently, and I had to remember that that's what's important, is family and love and relationships. And climbing the ladder and getting awards and getting degrees, that stuff all dies with you. But what you leave behind are the people that you impact and the lives you change.
Wow. Thanks, Coralee. I'm so sorry for your loss. And thank you for sharing that. And absolutely true, right? Annette, that's hard to follow, but is there some advice that you would give to your younger self?
I think that if I could give my younger self advice, it would have been, don't ever pick up a drink or a drug. Just continue to put one foot in front of the other. You would have a different Annette here today, and I battle with that. But that would be my advice to my younger self.
Well, except that you're an amazing person and you're helping so many people now. So I think to a certain extent, it pays to be grateful for, the things in the past that brought you here today. So on the Think Factory, we ask everyone this one final question, which is, what keeps you up at night? Annette, do you have something in particular?
Oh my gosh. What keeps me up at night? I think the amount of individuals that I know we will never touch. We will lose them to the disease of substance use disorder. That can keep me up at night, and so I have to set a special prayer for them so I don't mull that over in my mind.
For sure. And Coralee, anything from you?
I think I've gotten to the point in my life where I really try not to overthink things because of what I just said, that try not to take life so seriously. And so I used to stay up at night thinking about my to-do list, and I've gotten much better at that. And so I do fireworks. Fireworks keep me up at night, and that drives me crazy. Other than that, I think I sleep pretty good.
Me too. Well, listen, I just want to thank the two of you for being here and for sharing your own personal experiences and then talking about the great work that you're doing at GoMo Health. And I hope that, our listeners will check out your website and, reach out if there's some way that GoMo Health can help. Again, I'm Susan Kleiner, and I'm here for the Think Factory. Please be sure to listen in as my colleagues and I talk to business leaders about the issues affecting them. I want to thank you both, Coralee and Annette, for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.